Joining us now, the Washington Post senior national political correspondent and MSNBC political analyst Ashley Parker, Chief Impact Officer of 1063 West Broad and former senior advisor for Biden's 2020 presidential campaign, Alencia Johnson, and former Clinton campaign manager, Robbie Mook. All right, so Ashley, I'm going to begin with you. This convention is a really big opportunity for Democrats because history has shown, according to research, that there's a big polling bump that comes out of a convention, and the party with the most excitement after this moment is usually the one that wins.
Yeah, it's a huge moment for Democrats. I was actually thinking, just walking into the United Center today, that in a weird way, both parties got the convention they wanted. Obviously, in retrospect, it wasn't the convention the Republicans wanted, but you and I were both there, Katie. The Republican convention, it was excitement, enthusiasm after the assassination attempt, and with Biden still at the top of the ticket, there was a sense that Donald Trump was just going to walk back into the Oval Office. And even being on the ground here for 24 hours, there's an incredible sense, again, of excitement and enthusiasm for Democrats, for Vice President Harris at the top of the ticket. But I want to say that this is particularly important, this convention and this bump in this particular case, because of the unusual circumstances, right? Normally you would have a candidate who is so well defined from the primary process, but this is much more of a sprint, a British parliamentary timetable. A lot of voters don't know Vice President Harris, and so all conventions are introductions, but this one, it really matters how they introduce her and how they sort of launch her out of that cannon for this final 80-odd day sprint.
Alencia, and as we said, there's some rehearsals going on, so we're all going to be fighting against that. Alencia, VP Harris has only had this nomination for a little over a month. The agenda for the Democratic Party, the platform, was announced today. It's 92 pages. A lot of it refers to President Biden, a Biden second term. A lot of it leans on Biden proposals. Does that mean that a Kamala Harris presidency is going to be a second Biden term on the policy issues?
Well, look, Katie, I will be very honest with you. My headpiece just went out, but I think you're talking about this short sprint that we have between now and Election Day and how she's only been the nominee for a few weeks. Listen, Vice President Harris is going to, this week, build upon the achievements of the Biden-Harris administration, which is a great thing for Democrats for us to start with. President Biden this week, listen, he actually did a lot for this nation, and there were a lot of supporters. I know the media apparatus was talking about how he needs to step aside and the enthusiasm wasn't there, but President Biden has a huge base that still loves him. I mean, they're yelling, "Thank you, Joe. We love Joe Biden." He was at a rally last week in Maryland with Vice President Harris. And then we're going to continue to see her build upon that momentum and continue to show the American people that she can build upon that agenda. That's a very popular agenda. The one thing I think Ashley said about people getting introduced to Vice President Harris, I think President Biden is going to do a job introducing her. He did by picking her as his running mate and as vice president. But then she's also going to build upon that and talk about where she stands on the future of the party, the issues that we care about when it comes to abortion rights, protecting LGBTQIA Americans, the economic agenda that is popular that she wrote out last week. So we are really excited. I'm wearing blue because I'm really excited to see President Biden tonight and thank him for his service. And then as he passes the torch to Vice President Harris.
All right, Robbie, Alencia got to a lot of the what I was asking in that question, but I do want to ask it of you. Is this going to be a continuation of a Joe Biden presidency, or do you see moments or opportunities for VP Harris to deviate, to chart out her own path for her own administration if she wins?
Well, I think you've already seen the rollout that she did this week around reducing prices, grocery prices and everyday costs for American families. That was a bit of a different direction than we've seen. And so it's less about, that the specifics are going to be radically different or anything like that. But I do believe that you're going to see her focus, that focus shift. We also heard, the President Biden talked a lot about saving democracy. We've now heard this ever so slight shift from the Vice President talking more about our freedoms and protecting our freedoms. So I think you'll see some different focus areas But this will definitely be a continuation of a lot of the success that she's had under this administration. But the last thing I'll say in this, and I apologize because it's been hard for all of us to hear, so I hope this wasn't said before, but I believe it is so important for the vice president to make this campaign about turning the page in our politics in this country. And that's more thematic than specific. But part of turning that page is that she's her own person. She's a different candidate. This is a different time, a different future we're going into. So I think you'll hear that infused throughout this convention.
Tell me a little bit, Robbie, about what Hillary Clinton will do tonight and what this moment's going to be like for her. I mean, you were there in 2016 running against Donald Trump. She thought she was going to break through. She thought she was going to be the first woman president. How's it going to be for her tonight to get on that stage and talk about Kamala Harris?
Well, obviously, it's going to be bittersweet. What you're going to hear that you heard in 2016 is how important it is for us to break that glass ceiling. But I don't think you're going to hear Hillary talk about the past or talk about what did or didn't happen 8 years ago. I think you're going to hear her talk about what the opportunity to elect a woman president is going to mean in people's lives, what it's going to mean in terms of people's freedom to make their own healthcare decisions, the freedom to tell your children that they can be anything they want when they grow up, and have your kids really believe that. So I think it's going to be an optimistic speech. It's going to be a forward-looking speech, and she is going to be seeking to bottle that lightning that we're feeling right now, keep driving that momentum to make sure that, you know, all that energy we've been talking about here in this convention center pushes that campaign, this campaign, through to November.
Ashley, how much more does VP Harris need to get into policy going forward? I know we've got the platform from the DNC that's been released. She had her economic policy speech on Friday. Some of what she said there has opened her up to criticism from Republicans. They're using, the price cap that she wants to put, or going after price gouging at the grocery store. They're using that against her to say that she supports Marxism and communism. You hear Donald Trump calling her Maduro. Does that stuff land? Does she open herself up to more criticism and potentially more attacks if she gets farther into policy, or does that not matter? Does she have to going forward?
So I think the answer is both, and I'll take that question two ways. It's been fascinating to watch Donald Trump and his team try to alight on a nickname for Vice President Harris that sticks and has resonance with voters, and so far they haven't been successful. It will be interesting to see if Comrade Harris, Comrade Kamala does stick. We don't know yet. It's a little early. But for these nicknames to stick, the voters have to feel there's a kernel of truth. Now, for the policy question, I spent this morning talking to and listening to some very smart people who are running the Democratic Outside Super PAC. And what they were saying is that, yes, she doesn't necessarily have to drill down into the policy weeds in a way that will please economists, but that this is a bread and butter election, meaning the cost of bread and the cost of butter. And what voters want to hear, especially voters who don't know her, what they all want to know is, and what they want to tell her is, look, this is what my life is like. This is what it's like going to work at the hotel I work at or the supermarket I work at and just barely eking by. What are you going to do to help me? And she needs to have a plausible answer for that question. And that does involve some policy details. It doesn't necessarily involve deeply, deeply granular details, but it needs to be more than sort of a broad platitude of, I'm going to fight for you.
What about immigration, Alencia?
Listen, what Ashley was saying is like a really good point about this economic policy. I do think what you have seen with the Harris campaign is they are already speaking to voters. They have been traveling. You know, there's been a conversation about whether or not she's going to sit down and have a media interview. Well, her interview that's really important is that with the voters. They were in Pennsylvania yesterday and are getting here today. The piece around fighting for the American people is partly, yes, this policy piece, but also defining herself and Governor Walz and showing that we are not from the same class of previous leaders, right? We come from middle class America. We didn't go to Ivy League schools. She worked at McDonald's when she was in college. She understands how people are feeling. And for folks to engage with her around this and build that trust with her, they can actually move towards Vice President Harris and Governor Walz around this conversation, around the economy, along with a whole host of other issues that we've talked around: abortion, voting rights, criminal justice reform. Governor Walz has been a great advocate around criminal justice reform, and it's what a lot of Minnesota voters and citizens appreciate about him. So I think as we are defining who they are and where they come from, the policy will make more sense, and people will start trusting them quite a bit more.
I do wonder, though, about immigration and how far she gets into that subject, because Donald Trump leads her on that, and Democrats face a deficit. Does she try to head it off, or does she try to skirt the issue? Alencia, I'm out of time. Thank you so much, Robbie Mook, Ashley Parker. Appreciate it.